Welcome back to the Beyond the Hyphen podcast. I'm Mark Lee, your host. This evening, I am fortunate to be joined by Representative Gene Wu of Texas, a longtime public servant in the state legislature, advocate, current legislator, serving the 137th District of Texas. Representative Wu has been a leading voice in the Texas House on issues of education, immigration, public safety, currently serves as the chair of the Democratic Caucus. A little background: before Rep. Wu entered elected office, he worked as a prosecutor in the Harris County District Attorney's Office. Ever since, he's been recognized for his ways of leadership in protecting our immigrant communities, advancing immigrant rights, strengthening community government relations. He is a son of immigrants and a graduate of Texas A&M and South Texas College of Law. Rep. Wu has currently appeared in many corners of the political world. He is obviously currently featured in many places during this time for Texas, during this time in the political realm. So, Representative Wu, it's great to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Obviously, there's a lot to talk about and to dissect with regards to what's been going on in the White House and Congress and how that's affected Texas.
Right.
But what I want to start with is our API community in Texas. It's a growing population. It's still a minority population, but it's growing. And I think that an issue that I've noticed is that many of our Asian American folks, our neighbors, think that without other minority communities, their history would not be different, right? For example, the African American community, they led the civil rights movement. So what are your thoughts on that, the relationship?
In fact, I've actually I had multiple questions about this because during my interview with Antonio Vargas, I had said something that I have been saying for a long time, but people have heard it for the first time publicly, and is that the Asian American community owes a debt of gratitude and respect to the African American community, because we would not have our civil rights but for their sacrifices, but for Black blood and lives that were taken in the streets, people who were strung up and burned, people who were beaten to death, right? They paved the way for our rights. And this is the problem. Asian Americans, when they come here, don't forget, our people were legally banned from this country from 1882 to 1965, right? 1965, while it may seem like a long time ago, you know people who are alive in 1965. Right? It wasn't that long ago. And before 1965, our people were legally banned from this country. And so we really didn't start growing our population until the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And while our rate of increase is the highest growth in the whole country, we're still much smaller than any other minority community. But here's the thing. We came into an America where our rights were already established, that being a minority was no longer as big of a burden as it was in the past. And we came into a time when Asian people could just come in and go to school, start a business, and do all these things, and it was just done. Mm-hmm. What they don't realize is that just before they came here, the rights of minorities were almost non-existent. That before they come in, they would not have been allowed to go to school. They would not have been allowed to get a line of credit from a bank. They would not be allowed to purchase property. They would not be allowed to do all the things that they could do today. And Asian Americans come in, they say well, I became a millionaire in 10 years. Yeah. Why can't Latinos or Black people do that? Because you did not deal with the same things that their communities dealt with. When you came here, everything was laid out for you. And the problem is Asian Americans don't understand this. They don't realize this. So now, at a time when our community is under immense attack by white supremacists, right, by the far right, we have no natural defenses because we've never stood up for ourselves. Asian Americans in this country have never fully stood up by ourselves. We've always had help from our neighbors who help us stand up. And what my message is to the Asian community is, guys, if we don't learn to stand, we're going to be crushed. If we do not learn how to fight for our own rights, then we will have no rights. Our place in this country is tenuous. This country has looked at our people before and saw nothing but enemies. Like the Japanese incarceration was not that long ago. It was 80 years ago. Yeah. There are people alive today who lived through it. Yeah. And we're repeating the same history, passing the same laws, reinforcing the same attitudes, and our community is doing nothing.
You brought up how the stronghold here is not very strong. It's quite tenuous for our Asian American communities.
Correct.
This brings me back to think about the COVID-19 crisis and the everlasting consequences that are still, transcending our communities. What are your thoughts on how did you see the Asian American community respond to that crisis?
Look, the issues and the attacks on the Asian community were already in existence. The rise of anti-Asian hate was well in its effect before COVID. COVID was a catalyst. COVID supercharged, turbocharged, put a stick of dynamite under that racism and made it everywhere, right? It became normalized. It became acceptable to tell off-color Asian jokes, talking about people eating bats and all these different things. The type of racist characterization of our people in this country from 100 years ago started reappearing, right? 100 years ago, they used, Asian people, Chinese people, Japanese people, watch your dogs and cats. They like to eat them, right? They like to eat rats. They like to eat all these dirty, nasty things that nobody will touch, right? And that was forced upon, they carry disease. That fits right in. Of course they do. They look like they don't belong here, right?
Yeah.
And this is the problem. And this is one of the reasons why one of my biggest fights is to end the myth of the model minority. Because not only is it a racist stereotype that hurts our community, but it's one that we reinforce ourselves. The Asian American community helps reinforce its own stereotypes. I cannot imagine Black people or Latinos or gay people or Muslims or Jews reinforcing racist stereotypes against their own community. But we do it. Yeah. And every time we go out there and say, well, Asians are really hardworking, we're good at math, and we don't like to get mad, and we don't fight back. What that's saying to people is, we're not really Americans. Because Americans, when they don't have to work hard, they don't work hard. When Americans get slighted, they get pissed, right? When Americans get snubbed, they get angry, and they'll come in the street, and they'll yell and scream and kick. What we're saying when we're reinforcing the myth of the model minority and saying we're the good ones and we don't do those kind of things, we don't stand up, we don't protest, we don't yell, we're reinforcing this old stereotype of Asian Americans that we're not really American. And if you want to test this out, go out there. I've met Asian Americans who were sixth-generation Americans. Their families have been here over 100 years. I ask them, do you still get the question?
Yeah.
And I don't have to explain what the question is. Every Asian knows what the question is.
Yeah.
Where are you really from? Right? Because inherent in that statement is ideas like, I don't believe that you're a real American. Where are you really from? Right? Even said with kindness, that is what is implicit in people's minds. And we keep reinforcing it. Right? And what I want us to do is like, no. Asians get angry. Asians get mad. Asians will sacrifice and protest, right? Look at the history of our people in Asia. I mean, we come from so many countries that the people fought back. The people fought for liberty. The people fought for freedom. Even in China, like my parents' generation and younger, they were at Tiananmen Square. Yeah. They fought back, right? They tried their best. And for whatever it's worth, we need to find that strength again, and don't delude ourselves into thinking that our oppressors, the people seeking to harm us, the people seeking to take away our rights, are the ones who tell us that we're the good minority. Because you guys, even though you people insult you and denigrate you and attack you, you don't do anything. People discriminate against you. We pass laws against you, and you just take it. Our oppressors love that. They don't have to fight us ever. They can just keep crushing us and crushing us and crushing us. And we will do nothing. And it's a form of learned helplessness. And I'm saying stop. And if nothing else, if the older generation won't listen, I'm going to talk to the young people. I'm saying, baby, we got to fight. We got to fight against this. We got to tear this down, because I don't want people asking my boys that question. I want people to look at my sons when they grow up and say, he could be president, right? Right now, people look at me and say, hey, he could be president. People go, no way. We're never electing an Asian person, right?
Yeah.
I want to change that. I want to fix that. I want Asian Americans to be fully American, right? And we have to help do that. We have to stand up and fight for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Personally, I've been asked that question without a doubt. I'll tell you right now. And as a youth, it's difficult to approach that problem with the full picture, right?
But that's exactly where we start.
Yeah.
If we can do nothing else, we should start with the young people who say, when their friends say, but where are you really from? You say, no, you do not ask that question. The right way to ask that question is, what is your ethnic background? Tell me where does your name come from? Where is your family from, right?
Yeah.
What is your ancestry? That's a nice way to ask it without bringing that inherent bias into it. And let's start. Everyone who's listening to this, next time you hear someone say, whether you're Asian or not, you hear someone say, where are you really from? No. We're not asking, that is incorrect. You're asking that question in the wrong way. Let me explain why, right? And it's not to hurt people. It's not to be like the PC police. Mm-hmm. It's our own community standing up for ourselves and asking our friends and allies, asking people who love us to say, if you love us, then protect us. And the way you protect us is by having everyone realize that we are also Americans, that we deserve honor, respect, and protection, just like everyone else, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we've been quietly consistent. This consistency is dangerous, for sure, absolutely. Looking at now, though, right, these past 8 years or 12 years, considering the 2 Trump presidencies, this is not a topic we're gonna, obviously skip over, but he engendered this idea that, or he forwarded this, this notion that the AAPI community is dangerous, is foreign.
Yes. Yes.
How has this Trump era shaped the political culture of Texas as a whole? As an Asian American legislator, what's it been?
Let me not beat around the bush, right? Let's just talk about this point blank. Donald Trump, in my mind, his most damning statement about Asian Americans is a statement that says, these people are coming over here. They're all military-aged men, and they're forming an army in our country. Tell me who's not military-aged, right? How young do you have to be to not be military-aged? How old do you have to be to not be military-aged? Whatever you want to call it. But the real danger is the statement, they are forming an army in our country. And what I have to point you back is to the comments and the kind of statements that were made during World War II, during the Japanese incarceration. You understand that during the Japanese incarceration, 2/3, over 66% of those rounded up and forcibly imprisoned were natural-born American citizens, right? Citizenship didn't protect us.
Right.
And what they said was, in fact, the very general who was in charge of the camps repeatedly in the media said, it doesn't matter if they're American citizens or not. A Jap's a Jap, right? And the same concepts that it doesn't matter if they're American citizens, if they're Chinese, if they have one drop of Chinese blood, they're loyal to CCP. They can't help themselves. Like, look, we like the Asians, but, they're kind of weird, and everyone knows that they're loyal to their home countries, and that's all they can do. I mean, we don't really fault them for it. They can't help themselves. But here's a problem. when you are being labeled as a potential saboteur, a traitor, a spy, and at the same time, someone's saying you are a threat to them, to the country, and you're inside the country. Let me put it to you this way. If I told you in your home was a threat that threatened the life and safety of all your family and everything that you loved, right? Are you going to negotiate with that threat? Are you going to compromise with that threat? Are you going to wait and procrastinate about dealing with that threat?
No.
No. You will see that threat removed and destroyed and never come back to your home again. How does this end for the Asian American community when we are being labeled as threats to the life and safety of the nation, right? This only ends one way. We've seen it before. When you say the people here, without evidence, without trial, are a danger to the physical safety of other Americans, there is only one eventual outcome. And that's why I'm telling people it is so important for the Asian American community. Notice I did not say Chinese, right? Because nobody knows and or cares about the difference. When they come, they will come for everyone with Asian face, right? And we are taking the pathway back to the Japanese incarceration, step by step, and not even an imaginary step. The literal same types of legislation, the same comments, the same rationales, the same policy goals. It is word for word verbatim. I could literally take quotes from right now and from World War II, take away all the names and replace it with Asian, and it would work exactly the same. The statements made about Chinese people now versus the comments made about Japanese Americans then, they're the exact same things. And I've been trying to scream this at the top of my lung at the community, but it's hard for people to hear these things because Asian Americans, again, came when things were great. Asian Americans came in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Everything was established. Everything was rocking and rolling. We had rights. We didn't understand what the black people and the Latinos were yelling about. We don't need to be like them. Everything's great. I don't know what they're talking about. Until now. I've had a number of Chinese Americans come up to me after SB 17, the alien land law passed in Texas, that we fought so hard against, right? The community threw everything it had at that. And it still passed overwhelmingly by the Republicans. Yeah. Every single Republican voted for it. And they want to now all of a sudden people are coming to me like, I think I know and understand how black people must feel. Because this is what it feels like. That you are pleading your humanity to our leaders. Pleading with them that this is unequal, this is unfair, this is un-American. And they look at you with a straight face and smile and say, sorry, that's the way it is. Yeah. And part of what makes me really angry is that we are complicit in this. Our community is complicit in its own attack. If we are destroyed, our community will have been complicit in its own destruction. Because we saw this coming and did nothing. Right? Because it is the nature of our communities, well, frankly, all immigrant communities, to stick their head in the sand. But I'm telling every Asian American who will be listening and all our allies and friends, anyone who will support us, silence is death. That's it. Either you fight or go ahead and lay down. And if you're going to lay down, don't do it in front of me, right? Go do it outside. So I'm going to throw everything I have at this. And if it doesn't work, I may have to leave the country because, they're calling for my arrest. People are openly calling for my denaturalization. People are calling for me to be sent to a prison in Libya, et cetera, et cetera. People are calling for me to be arrested and shot in the street, right? Because the animus towards minorities is already increased. The animus towards immigrants is doubled. But to be a minority immigrant legislator helping lead the opposition, it's frightening. But I'd rather take the blows than for other people to take the blows. But I gotta say, as I'm taking these hits, as people are coming after me, like, I need everyone else to gear up behind me. I'm going to hold them back for as long as I can, but I cannot hold out forever. I need others to rise up and join me. I need others in the community who will speak the truth to everyone else and to say, we must fight or we will leave, right? They can kick Asians out of this country again, and they are likely to do so if they have the opportunity. Read Project 2025, right? Everything is laid out. I tried to tell people in the community about it prior to the election. Most people just kind of ignored me and just laughed it off. Yeah. Project 2025 calls for pretty extreme things, like basically a complete ban on immigration from Asia, a complete ban on Asian people holding positions in the United States of any kind, right? All sorts of limitations, with the eventual unstated goal of, when there's enough, we'll just round you up and kick you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, obviously all my listeners, you guys hear Rep Wu, his message. It's real. It's very real. From a podcaster's standpoint, obviously the message, it's been delivered many times, but with this sense of urgency is a new message that I think we need to spread.
Yep. I think this sense of urgency for the immigrant community, and especially for Asians, is doubled, tripled, quadrupled, because we are target number one. And Asian Americans, especially newer immigrants, really have a hard time understanding why. Because they watched America from afar. They hear us that we're a nation that treats everyone fairly and gives everyone a fair shot. They don't get it. They don't understand it, because they've never seen the past history. If you knew the past history of the way our people were treated in this country, you would not be surprised about any of this. You would actually say, "Oh, it's going to get worse," if you knew history, right? Because in the past, Asian Americans had been in this country before there was an America. Asians were here during the revolution. The first Asians in the country were, by the way, Filipinos, right? And so here's the thing. 250 years, Asians have been in this country. For the most of this country's history, nobody cared, because they were in small numbers. Yeah. When a larger number of Asians started coming in the 1800s, the middle 1800s, like gold mining, railroad, and doing all the crap stuff that white people didn't want to do, right? Asians, while we were being slaughtered on the railroad, when we were being blown up in mines because of people didn't care, because it was funny. When all those things occurred, nobody cared about Asians. But as soon as those things were over and Asians saved their money, they started buying up businesses, started opening farms, started doing all these other stuff that everyone else does. Mm-hmm. Then people got upset, because the Asians now started competing against the white people, right? Against the people in power. And they started winning. Asian Americans started not only being successful in their own businesses, but they put the older businesses out of business, and they bought up those businesses. People started to get pissed. Right? Yeah. And so it started, as soon as people started fearing the economic power of Asians, they started passing laws. Mm-hmm. First were laws banning Asians from certain types of jobs. In California, for a long time, it says straight up, Asians are only allowed to do women's work. And that was listed in the law as women's work, meaning cooking and cleaning, doing the dirtiest, nastiest jobs available. And don't forget, Asian women were not even allowed into the country. So you're forcing Asian men to do what you specifically say is women's work as an extra little bit of discrimination and insult, right?
Humiliation. Yeah.
And like right before, 7 years before 1882, they passed a law that says we're going to ban all Chinese and Japanese women. Like, why women? Why women? Because they talked about us as vermin, right? They talked about us as useful vermin, rats. Like, we need them to do the work that slaves used to do, but we don't want them to breed, right? They're a pest. They're a useful pest that needs to be controlled. And then 7 years later, they said, screw it. We'll just ban them all. And from 1882 to 1965, only 105 Asians, and remind you that back then they have no idea of Chinese, Japanese, or anybody else. You're all just Asian, right? And not even Asian. They said the Mongol races. And only 105 were allowed in per year.
Yeah.
105 allowed into this country per year, including visitors. Right? And so let's go to 1975. 10 years after the doors opened, Asians really started coming in. And after that, after 1975, every 10 years, every census, our population doubles. And that rate of growth is increasing, right? And so 1980s, like Asians come here, they settled, their kids are in school, a few valedictorians. Nice. People, hey, Asians are doing really good. Those are good. Hey, they are the good minority, right? They're students at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Few people go to Harvard. Harvard's Asian enrollment goes from like 1% to 4%, right? 1990s roll around, Asian population doubles. A lot more people coming, a lot more valedictorians, a lot more people going to Harvard. Asian population goes to like 15%. 2000s roll around, increase immigration from every country. And like a few years ago, I dealt with a situation over here in one of my local high schools where they had to figure out which of the 18 co-valedictorians was a true valedictorian, right? That wasn't the important part. The important part was 16 of the 18 valedictorians were Asians, right? And a lot more people are going to Harvard. Mm-hmm. And Harvard went from 2%, 1% Asian to 30, almost 40% Asian. Here's the thing. The Black population, the Latino population at Harvard and Yale and Stanford and everyone else is flat. It's never really changed. It's been the same level pretty much throughout. So if there's a fixed number of seats, other minority populations haven't changed, who did we replace? Who did we displace?
Yeah.
But it's not just white, right? Because the white kids, the white students who had the grades, who had the skills to pay the bills, they still got in. The ones who are now being rejected are the people whose children attended because of their money, because of their power, because of their prestige, because of their name, not because of academic standards. And those people are being pushed out. Their children, who their ancestors went to Harvard for 4 generations. And now they're being told no. People get upset when that happens, right? Wealthy people being denied what they feel is their due is dangerous. But it's not just Harvard. Look around corporate America. Look at every C-suite. It's Asians coming in. It's Chinese. It's Vietnamese. It's Indian. It's Korean. It's Pakistani, right? Mm-hmm. And people see that the power of America is shifting. And they don't like that, right? And they won't come out and say it, but watching this video clip. I have it on one of my presentations. I think they're talking to Jordan Peterson, and he's being interviewed by an Asian person. And it's like, look, you and I get along really well, and you're enjoying this nice Chinese food. Shouldn't I be allowed into this country? And the response is no, because the reality is there is a place for Asians, that's Asia. There's a place for Black people, it's Africa. And God gave America to white people. Now, while he may be rare in the fact that he would say that publicly, that belief is not unusual. People usually have the intelligence to keep that quiet. But that is a real sentiment that we, who came just recently, who are invaders, are now taking what rightfully belongs to wealthy, powerful people.
Yeah.
And the sooner that Asian Americans understand that we're not just fighting a race type of issue, this is also economics. You're the same competitor that you were when it was the 1850s. You're putting them out of business. So they're retaliating by using their power to pass laws against you. It has not changed one bit, right? And so as we're stepping step by step towards revisiting the Japanese incarceration, I tell you this, here is the one difference this time. This time, we can vote. This time, we have democratic power. This time, we have allies, right? We can do something about it. We can fight back. The Japanese who were rounded up, they had no choice. They had no rights and no power. Let's not squander all that's been built up in the last 80 years. Let's go fight. Let's go fight for what belongs to us. We are Americans too. This country belongs to us as much as it belongs to anyone else.
Yeah. I mean, look at the gerrymandering.
Yeah.
Look at what Trump is doing to Texas. Right? It directly counteracts this so-called power to vote, if we vote at all. Can you break down?
And it gets worse than that. So when Asians were largely voting with Republicans, they're happy to give our community power. But since Obama, the Asian community really has flipped, did like an immediate 180. And really, the bulk of Asian Americans are now against Republicans. And because of that, now we're involved in their redistricting. Now they're finding ways to carve up our power where we've built it up. And that happened right here in Texas as well. When you watched our quorum break and the redistricting map, we didn't talk about it as much. But what they did to African American communities, what they did to Latino communities, they did the same to Asians.
Yeah. And your colleague, Rep. Tallarico, emphasized a few weeks ago how politicians should not be choosing their own votes.
Absolutely.
But from a legislator's standpoint, how do you even begin to work in an environment where they all cower to the person in the White House?
Sometimes what I realize is if the legislature, if the chamber itself is unwilling to do what's right, we have to go find that willingness somewhere else, right? Democracy is not a one-piece set. There are lots and lots of pieces of a democracy. And we know that maybe the door has closed on that piece, but there's other open doors, right? While we still have a democracy, and I joked about not having elections like just a few months ago as it's kind of funny, but now I think we all recognize that when I say if we have elections in 2026, right, I think it'll go well. But we cannot rely on hopes. We must take action to make sure that what we want occurs. And I'll be blunt about this. Asian Americans, you had a role in Donald Trump being elected. Many of you voted for him despite knowing what he was going to do. And many of you sat out in the election. Everyone is responsible. And as good Asians, what I would say to you is, we have a responsibility, as we have been taught growing up. If you make the mess or help make the mess, you help clean up. And this is it. All the Asian Americans who made the mistake of supporting Trump, despite his racist idiocy, you have a chance to fix it. And you need to fix it. If you are part of the problem, then you must be a part of the solution. That's it.
Yeah. And the young people, I want to go back to this because we are a young people focused podcast. They're really getting the hard end of it, right? They're seeing some of the young people are on the same boat that you're on, but they see their parents acting in a different way. How do young people even begin to feel hopeful or to take action, to take agency?
If you felt hopeful, then you wouldn't have the motivation to work, right? It's only because times are bad that are people really thinking about, we have to do something, right? So here it is. It's okay to feel hopeless, but it's not okay to be inactive. It is completely normal and rational to look upon this world and saying, oh my God, what the hell happened? How will we ever fix this? But the next response should not be, let me just crawl back into bed. The next response is, how do we start taking this apart? How do we fight back? And I'll lay it out as simply as I can. And this is, I call my 3 steps of democracy. Step 1, educate yourself, educate everyone around you as much as possible on everything, right? Read the news every day, follow what's going on, be aware, make sure everyone else is aware. 2, organize. I don't care if it's just your buddies on your text group or on Discord or anything else. Any group of people who you say, they agree with me, they think like I do, let's go. Get them together, make sure there's a way to communicate with them, organize them, and saying, we're a group. 3, now that you are organized and educated, go do something. Whether that's voting, whether that's a march, whether it's a protest, whether it's helping somebody run for office, whether it is simply running for office yourself. Go do it. Stop sitting around and hoping that things get better. Take things into your own hands. Take action. Get organized, get educated, get active. And there's no excuse. There is no excuse for anyone to sit on their ass. Like, this is an all hands on deck, every single American. If you believe in this country, if you believe that America is the beacon on the hill, that we are supposed to act as if we are at the top, that we are the best, that we are the brightest, that we are the most fair and the most just and the most righteous, then act like it. Then fight for a country that acts that way. Right? Americans are always considered arrogant because we were the best. And we're not the best anymore unless you count mass shootings or medical debt. And if you want to be the best again, then we have to go back to the things that made us the best. And that is be a beacon on the hill, a beacon of democracy, a beacon of freedom, a beacon of liberty and justice. And if we do not have those things in our country, then there is no beacon, there is no America. Like, if you say you love this country and you love being an American, what you're actually saying, you don't love a piece of land. You don't love a flag, a physical object.
You love what makes it.
You love the idea of America. You love America, the nation. You love America, the people. You love America, the values and what we stand for. That's the real America. It's not a flag pin. And if you believe, as I did growing up, that America should be this place for everyone, the one place in the world where it's for the people, by the people, then we have to make it true. We can't just simply hope and wish that it'll happen. We have to make it happen. And that's the lesson for the Asian American community. We came in with our rights established, and we assume that our rights will always be there and that we don't need to do anything. And what we're telling you now is wrong. Every generation has to fight for what was already earned in the past. Because as we have seen, what was given in the past can be taken away tomorrow. And our rights are about to be taken away. Our presence in this country, our ability to call this our home is about to be taken away. And whether what we stand up to it is up to us. At the end, if we lose our place in this country, we will have no one to blame but ourselves. Right? Because the evil people are always going to be evil. They can't help themselves. That is their nature. But our inaction, our apathy, that's on us. Right?
I don't know if you saw this, Rep Wu. Oh my Lord. The memes that he posts. It's, I don't even know what to make of it, right? There are these adults that, sure, they believe in those memes. They like it. But the younger community, I see kids in my school. They laugh at it. They like it. They are engaged by it.
So I want to say, be very careful about the memes. And here's the reason why. What Donald Trump discovered in his first presidential administration is that if you do controversial stuff that is meaningless, it will completely distract the country from the actual problems you're causing. And that's what's going on right now. If you look at what's happening in the heart of Trump land, the rural community is burning to death right now. And I'm not sure, and no media is covering it. Like only slivers of report are coming out. But if you watch social media and you watch the videos of farmers and ranchers who are like avid Trump supporters now saying they're losing the farm that has been in their family for 6 generations because of Trump's tariff wars, trade wars, right? And they're like, we voted for him. And now not only is he not helping us, no one's helping us. And America's going under. Like people are being laid off, farms are going under, people are being laid off everywhere. Like this week, they lose their jobs. Next month, they lose their homes. And it's coming. And why isn't Donald Trump talking about it? Because our media is focused on his memes. Our media is focused on the ballroom. Our media is focused on all the nonsense that happens. But the thing that is the most important in our society is, how do we feed ourselves? Do people work? How do we have homes? If I get sick, where do I go? I mean, like, people this week and last week saw their bills for their medical insurance for next year because of Trump's dumbass bill. All the Obamacare ACA subsidies are now dead. People's insurance rates that used to be $200 a month is now $2,000 to $3,000 a month. That is not sustainable at all, like zero. Like you cannot pay more in 1 month than you do basically the entire year in the other plan. There's no way that Americans are going to have health care after this. And what's going to happen is, you know what those people are going to do? Those people will now like $3,000 a month medical costs, just for insurance. They're not going to pay it. They're not going to buy it. And they're either going to die or go bankrupt or just push the cost onto you. And that system is not sustainable because after a while, it's going to collapse. What happens when it collapses? Right? What happened? I mean, like rural hospitals are closing like on a daily basis now. Like in Texas, it used to be like once every other month a rural hospital closed. Now it's like basically a weekly occurrence. That is unsustainable. And what happened? Where's our food going to come from? Right? If these farmers go out of business, who grows food next year?
Yeah.
So look, don't get. I know this memes are bad. But in your mind, remind yourself he is doing this on purpose to distract us from the fact that our country is burning. Nero fiddling while Rome burns has nothing on this. Our entire country is on fire, not one city.
Yeah. And, you know, I was actually at this No King's protest. I spoke as a young person from a young perspective. The point I was making is that these movements to solve the issues that we see don't start in Washington.
Yes.
We solve the issues that come out of Washington, but the solutions don't start in Washington. And from the standpoint, as a young person, it always feels like we're fighting this crisis from yesterday.
Wait. I know where. Can I just respond? I know where you're going. Let me put it this way. Every revolution in human history, every change for the better, every improvement in society, every time a society moves forward, it is only because of young people. Point blank. Who was in Tiananmen Square? Young people. Who pushed the civil rights era? Young people.
Freedom riders. Yep.
Right? Who did all these things? Who today is fighting ICE and fighting all these things? It's young people. People who have not, that life has not beaten the fighting spirit out of you yet. And people who are willing to say, nope, that's just wrong. I'm not going to stand for it. Right? Because when you get older, you say, oh, it's wrong, but I want to deal with it. I mean, I got my own problems. Right? Mm-hmm. But people who are idealistic, people who look at the world and say, this is not what I was taught in school. This is not the America that I was told about. And they're not taking it. They're not standing for it. They're like, screw this. Right? And it's not just that young people are pissed. They should be pissed. But they also are the ones who have the most to lose if we do not fight back, if we do not correct this. Because if we are no longer in a country where hard work and following the rules matters anymore, and all that matters is your last name and how wealthy your parents were, then there's no American dream. It's dead. Because what defines success are all the old things that created the reason why we had to leave the old country in the first place. The power was stuck inside the ruling class, where the people had nothing. Why would we bring that here? Why did our parents, why did we fight so hard to get out of those places when we're going to do the exact same thing to our own country? Mm-hmm. What's the point? Right? And for young people, if you are not ready to fight, if you are not ready to get active and do something and take this into your own hands and take power back, what do you want? What kind of future do you have? I mean, unless you're the child of a billionaire. I would not be where I am if America was that way. My parents would not have come here, right? If things were that way. We could have gone to Canada. Yeah. We could have gone to Mexico. Whatever it was. And young people, you have the most to lose, but you also have the most to gain. And I will tell you again, history is always being rewritten by the young because they cannot stand the way the things are, because they see what the future holds for them and they say no. I need more people to say no. I need more people to be fed up, to be tired, and to say, I will not take this anymore. Right? And we gotta work. And look, I'm gonna throw this out there. We got Thanksgiving coming up, and we're probably still gonna be in a federal strike then. We should have a national strike. We should say on Black Friday, we buy nothing. We shop nowhere. We spend no money. Black Friday, we stay at home. We hang out with friends. We do stuff that costs no money. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason we are here, the reason that things are the way they are today, is because the corporate interests, the people that are wanting to make money off of every single little thing off your life, to nickel and dime us to death for their pockets, for their wealth, right? They're happy to do this to us. But if we make them not win, if we make them lose the one thing that they want to win and make them lose money, we can fight back and make them have a change of pace, a change of heart. We have to strike them where it hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective. As we wind down, obviously, I have just one more question for you.
Sure.
It's taken into consideration everything that we've talked about. Texas, its diverse demographics, what's going on right now in Washington.
Yep.
And obviously, I think Texas ends up as a preview of where the rest of the country is heading. Politically, culturally, I think I mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
When you look at the future of Texas, and feel free to, extrapolate this to the entire country, what do you think the next political chapter of the state is going to be, assuming there is a election in 2026 and 2028? What's that?
I don't know about next year. I don't know about after 26. I'm talking about next year. I'm talking about a few months from now. The thing that concerns me the most is the continuing militarization of our society, right? Trump is purposely, intentionally bringing military troops into our cities. The point is that military troops are really, really terrible at dealing with civilians, especially angry civilians. They're really bad at it. Because when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? The troops are trained to deal with hostile resistance in only one way. And so the point is to create enough strife in the cities that he can just declare martial law. And if he declares martial law, then there's no need for elections. Right? This is the fear that I have. This is I think the easy play that they're going for. And so we have to not only go out and protest, but we have to do it nicely. We cannot create the situation that they're trying to provoke. Right? But I'll say this one little thing. There is a thing called the 3.5% rule. And if you don't know what it is, you should look it up. It says basically in the history of humanity, by just some light research, they said like when about roughly 3.5% of the total population is out in the streets, governments fall. Now, this doesn't play out exactly over every country. And I think that's more true for dictatorships and authoritarian regimes, not as much for democracies. But 3.5% of the American population is about 10 million people. We had 7 million out this weekend. Let's get that number up. Let's go out there and go provoke change, right? It's the least we can do. Go vote, join a protest, costs nothing, takes no effort. Just go do it, right?
And do it peacefully.
Do it peacefully.
Yeah. Governor Westmore, before I end, Governor Westmore, you mentioned how he was a veteran himself. He finds it insane. And Ted Lieu, all of these veterans that are serving, they find it absolutely insane that, Trump is just deploying these National Guardsmen and Guardswomen as sort of these pawns in chess, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Americans against Americans.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, Trump has done more damage, permanent damage to our society and to the power of this nation and the prestige of this nation than the Russians ever did throughout like the last 50 years of the Cold War. If they had Donald Trump back during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we probably would be speaking Russian right now. And it's just like for people who, even conservatives, Republicans who care about this stuff, who care about American military power and all this stuff, don't you care that we are as weak as we've ever been because of Donald Trump. So
yeah,
I don't mean to, hyperventilate and really, I'm not trying to scare people. And the reality, and I know people have told me that you're trying to fearmonger and all this stuff. No, I'm just telling you exactly what is out there, right? Any judgment you make about how bad it is, you make that on your own, right? I just tell you what's happening. You assume how bad it was, right? And so everyone out there that's watching this, they can see it for themselves too, right? And the simple warning is this: if we don't do something about it now, every month we delay, every year that we delay, fixing it the next month, fixing it the next year will be that much harder. And after a certain point, it will be beyond repair. And
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And just look at how well he masquerades everything, right?
Yes.
How well he disguises everything. So that's a big concern, but we can and we need to take action now. So, Repu, I totally appreciate your perspectives. I think your work in particular definitely serves as a reminder. You have people behind you.
Yep.
Our listeners can take your perspectives and your opinions, your experiences, especially in a state as defining as Texas. So thank you so much for joining me, for spending your evening, your insight with us.
Absolutely. And if you're in California, vote for Prop 50. Yes on Prop 50.